As you can tell, I have a bit of a raspy voice. I lost my voice when I landed here. I mean, I'm going to sound like Dave Chappelle with 10 cigarettes. Seriously. So my voice is usually not like this, like I said. It's usually much deeper, actually. Kind of like James Earl Jonesy or something. Anyhow, I'm going to start it like I always do. What I like to say is good morning, Dom, for the 5 of you who follow me on Twitter. I just like to greet the Dom because nothing happens in our world without the Dom, obviously. So you want to make sure that she is good. I'm glad to be back in Salt Lake City, or what we call at work GCE US West 3. Yeah, over at Webpage Test, that's one of our zones, so I just thought it was funny. I have a lot to go through, so I'm just going to get going real quick, and I'm going to start like this. Remix is a full-stack web framework that lets you focus on the user interface and work back through web standards to deliver a fast and slick and resilient user experience. That's something that we're going to keep in mind today because we're going to talk about that. And as we kept going, if you went through the docs, page speed is only one aspect of our true goal, though. We are after better user experiences. I work in web performance, so people say page speed is super important, but I will say user experience is even more important, or equally. And I'm going to follow that up and say we're pushing boundaries. We've been on the web for a little while right now, and we've been pushing boundaries in ways that we didn't think would be imaginable. Everyone can hear me, right? Because I feel like I'm super raspy. Thank you. The difficult, we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. And what did we feel was impossible once upon a time is happening right now. Now, I flew over here from, well, I was in Los Angeles, but I'm from Toronto, so I bought my ticket online. I'm a runner, and I've been wearing a lot of Adidas Adizero recently, but I've been buying all of it online. In fact, this jacket that I had on, I bought online. We've been doing everything online. In fact, if the Utah Jazz was still in the playoffs, I would have bought my ticket online. But if for any of you who saw my talk last year, you would have got that joke, but it's all good. So with that being said, I want to welcome everyone, and you're going to sit through a presentation that I'm calling A Fistful of Data. It's a data-driven talk about data on the web. So I work at Catchpoint, where I work on this amazing tool called Webpage Test. Hands up if you've heard of used Webpage Test. Awesome. For the rest of you, sit back, relax. We're going to have some fun. You can find me on socials at Henri Helvetica, Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. What's the other one? Oh, Mastodon. And whatever else is out there. And I'm from the greatest city on the planet, which is Toronto, Canada. And for the few of you I've spoken to who I saw wearing Garmin watches, yes, I am a runner. And normally I would be going for a run, but I'm doing a little bit of physio and I'm feeling awesome, but I'm thinking about it maybe tomorrow morning. Anyhow, let's go. So how did we get here? Well, we got here starting in 1995. And for the history buffs in you, it started with RFC 1866. That's when the image tag was introduced. Awesome. Very consequential, by the way, like created a lot of experiments or experimentation. But more importantly, in 1995, we witnessed what some of us know as the 10 days in May. Who's familiar with the 10 days in May? Okay, here comes the history lesson. JavaScript was created in 10 days, and it was done in May. And in fact, this week is the anniversary of the 10 days, because it started in May 6, 1995, ended in May 15 in the presentation. I thought that was kind of cool. But no, really, how did we get here? Well, let's find out. Well, it started with a little bit of HTML. Then we added a little bit of CSS. And then we added a lot of images. We needed images on the web, so we'll get into that in a hot minute. But then we added a lot of JavaScript as well. No, seriously, we added a lot of JavaScript. And exactly. But we needed the JavaScript because JavaScript created the interactivity that we all love and need so that we can buy our ticket and fly over here. And we could buy our added zeros and whatnot. So we're going to go through a bunch of data right now that I've compiled to get you sort of in that sort of a headspace where we take a look at a lot of data under the hood at Web Page Test. We see what's going on with your apps, your sites. We see best practices. We see not so good practices. But we're going to go through that right now. But I mentioned that this talk is called A Fistful of Data. Now, why is it called A Fistful of Data? Well, we hold our smartphones or mobile phones in our hands, in our fists. So I want to take a look at some data around mobile. Now, I'm always reminding people that when you do, say, some testing, you have to do it mostly on mobile because that's where society is right now. We are in a mobile world. By the way, I want to make sure I don't go over time, but I don't see a clock anywhere. Does that mean I could just keep going forever? Look up, left. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. And in November 2016, this was a huge date in history for the web. This is when the web was being, people were accessing the web on mobile, more on mobile than desktop for the first time in history. That's November 2016. It's kind of like one of those 50% plus one vote. But you have to remember this because we are not going back. Ever. Like, at no point are we going to go back to desktops. And Akamai released a bunch of data recently, last year, so we can have a look at what they're seeing in terms of their networks, Akamai, Premier, CDN. And 63% of traffic right now is on mobile. And in fact, 67% of sites are being accessed more on mobile than desktop. And again, desktop is not dead yet, but it's trending to be a mobile story. Now, if we look at some more data, the top 1 million through 1,000 sites are being accessed by mobile at a rate of 82% through 89% or so. So once again, you want to keep in mind that your users are really just accessing all the info that you're putting out, mostly on mobile. Now, again, I want to remind people there are two mobile users, all right? iPhone users and devils. All right? I'm sorry, guys. No, but this is going to be very important a little later when I bring this up because oh, okay. Sorry. Something else came up. Thank you for the clock. Because right now the split is the following. 41% iPhone and 59% you-know-who. Now, this is going to be important because just traditionally, Android devices are not as powerful. And I'm going to talk about that in a hot minute. Now, let's talk about images. Now, images introduced again in 1995, very important because especially if you're into e-commerce, you want to make sure that your products look good. Now, what are we seeing when we look under the hood and the data? What is the data showing? So at the 75th percentile, there's 2.5 megs of images loading. And you might think that's not a big deal, but that's actually significantly heavy. Now, another piece of data you want to keep in mind, 75% of those pages are not lazy loading the images. So we have a lot of wasteful data coming down the wire. And you're going to find out a little later on, these things are not good for us. Now, I forgot to put the slide in, but Remix likes to remind us, use the platform. We've been able to lazy load natively since I think about 2019 or 2020. So there's ultimately no reason why we should be loading this much image data down the wire. Now, more data. 44.1% of these images are lossless formats. So we're talking PNGs, we're talking GIFs. Okay? But again, that should not be, yes, Team GIF. We're having a drink later. That should not be the case. Okay? Now, even worse is the fact that 84%, almost 85% of these images are not being loaded in modern formats. Now, I know we feel real comfy with the JPEG. The JPEG turned 30 last year. We feel real comfy with the PNG and the other one. But the fact is that we have modern formats right now that have some pretty good coverage, notably the WebP. And if you want to get fancy, you could probably use the AVIF as well. So we should not be loading 2.4 megabytes of images down the wire, especially when we know we have these modern formats. Now, images are an important aspect of the user experience. Why? Because the LCP, who's familiar with the largest contentful paint here, Core Web Vitals, LCP is one of the important vitals there, and 70% of of images make up the LCP. All right? So if you don't get your image management done correctly, you're likely providing a poor user experience. And with that being said, 43% of LCP is poor or bad. That's what the web is saying. This is the data that is coming back. There are some other items that are involved in getting some good LCP, but the fact is that if you don't get your image management right, there's a good chance you're on your way to having some poor LCP. Now, let's get into some JavaScript. One thing you want to remember is 1 kilobyte of JS is not like 1 kilobyte of JPEGs, all right? JavaScript has this level of toxicity that we're going to talk about. JavaScript, you load too much of it, it hammers the main thread. JavaScript, when you load too much of it, hammers some key metrics that we're going to talk about. And ultimately, if you load too much JavaScript, you're hammering your user experience. I'm a bit of a history buff here, so let's get into some more history, shall we? Yes, we can. May 10th, 2023. I don't know. I'm trying to think here. Oh, yeah, that was yesterday. Okay. I talk about some key metrics when it comes to JavaScript interactivity. And yesterday was Google I/O, and they announced that what was once an experimental metric is now going into sort of like final stages, right? The IMP, interaction to next paint, something that was introduced last year because they saw that JavaScript was creating this sort of environment where we could not just, get the user experience that we wanted. So they created this other metric called the IMP. And it's been around, like I said, experimental for a year. And yesterday they announced that it's pretty much official. It's on its way. Shout outs to Annie Sullivan. So there is a relationship between JavaScript, IMP, and another one that I'm going to mention, which is TBT, total blocking time. This is the time that the thread is being hammered by JavaScript and you can't do much. You're like clicking. It's like, I want to buy these, I don't know, Addy zeros, but I can't because it's not being responsive. So Ultimately, what I'm saying is the more JavaScript you send down the wire, the worse the IMP metric will be, and the worse your TBT will be as well. Let's look at some more data. So what are we sending down a wire when it comes to JavaScript? At the 75th percentile, what we are seeing is the following. Thank you. 857 kilobytes of JavaScript at P75, all right? What does that mean? Well, the IMP gets a reading of 250, which is already in that mediocre zone because it's 200, and anything below 200 is good, 200 to 500 is mediocre, and 500 onwards is bad. So that's what we're going to see just by having P75, 857 kilobytes of JS. Then our TBT is going to be at almost 3.5, well, past 3.5 seconds, all right? So we're almost guaranteeing that your main thread is going to be locked up for 3 seconds. You won't be able to do nada. At P90, this is what we're shipping in terms of JavaScript. Over a meg, our IMP is going to be 60% higher, and our TBT is going to be almost 78% higher. So again, the correlation of too much JavaScript, you're ruining your user experience almost like 100 out of 100 times, whatever that meant. So, long tasks come from TBT, and what happens is that on mobile, it's 2.5 to 3.3% worse, all right? So once again, I get back to the idea with when you're on a lower powered device, like the ones the devils use, you are sure to have a poor user experience. In fact, this is something that we've been following for a while, and you're gonna hear about it a little bit more, which is rage clicking, rage clicks. There's an actual definition, so it's the amount of times you're hitting a particular area in succession. I'll go on Twitter and post about it, but this is something that is being tracked right now by Akamai, by Google, and you're probably gonna see it out floating around. Now, let's talk about unused JavaScript, because that is also happening. We're shipping so much JavaScript down the wire that there's stuff left over. At P75, basically 40% of the JavaScript that's been sent is unused. At P90, 45%. All right? These are things I just want you to keep in mind when you're deploying, when you're going to do some testing, things to look for, the frameworks that you're using. So this is to remind you that, when it comes to performance, what we love to talk about over web page tests at Catchpoint, it's more than speed. Ultimately, it is about the user experience, and the abundance of resources that we're sending down the wire are creating a poor experience. Here's a little quote, Postel's Law. Be conservative in what you send. And that's what we try to remind folks all the time, all right? And in fact, this is something from Kenzie Dodds that I love. Enhancing the experience is way better than enabling the experience with JS. Enhancing the experience is way better than enabling the experience with JS. And we've been trying to enable the experience with a lot of JS. So ultimately, we want to make sure that these two magical words reverberate: progressive enhancement, and making sure you send the right amount down. So I'm going to close it out real quick. Whoa, what just happened? So hands up if you travel. Okay, let's go. Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace. But I do a little bit of traveling myself. Sometimes I buy Sims. And here are two real messages that I received while traveling. On the left, I was going to actually Amsterdam, but I was crossing a couple borders, and I was told that I was going to pay 7.20 pounds per megabyte. Okay, who's got that kind of money? Well, if you do, let me show you the other one where I was going to pay $51.20 per megabyte. I mean, I was fine at 50. I scoffed at 51. It's not even a joke, though. So here's another thing, and I'm going to need a couple minutes. I'm sorry, guys. Remember this fanny pack that everyone got? Yeah. Wasn't it awesome? And I'm not talking about my fanny. No, but I love this fanny pack. I thought it was so cool. And I actually even tweeted about it. And I remember I was taking it out the package, and I saw this little tag, and I'm like, oh man, what is it called? The hip pack? Cool. Well, our webpage says the performance types, we are very curious. And I'm going to show you something real quick here. I think I'm going to have to move it. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Hold on. Give me a second. This is not a live demo, so it's going to work. Okay, there we go. Bingo. Where's my mouse? All right. So, as you saw, there was a QR code, right? And I took my phone, and I was like, hey, let me take a look, see what's going on. It's the 3L Fanny Pack Del Dia of the day. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh man, look at this site. Cool, cool. All right, pretty colors, awesome photos. All right, so what did I do? I sent it through web page test. And here are the results. This is what it looks like when you go through web page test. You get the performance summary and whatnot. Well, okay, page weight 20 megs. There we go. We have a winner. So this page would have cost me $1,000. I mean, this better be a goddamn good pack. This is not fake news, though. Like, this was what happened. And I mean, I can get into all the other stuff, like the largest archetype for paint, 21 seconds, bad news. Total blocking time, bad news. Okay? And I was going down, I was like, Jesus. You know, basically, it was like 5 megs of JavaScript, 13 megs of images. Anyways. Hold on, I just want to get out of here. How do I do this? There we go. And I'm just going to do this. Come back. Anyways, so in case you're trying to scan this QR code, fair warning. All right? Especially the devils out there. Anyhow, I want to thank you very much for your time. I hope you get the vibe here, which is the user experience is important, but let's make sure that we send the right amount of data down the wire, and we'll all be happy. Thank you.
Wow.
Hold on, one more thing. I'm going to tweet out that link to that web page test report on my Twitter, I guess, because I'm going to tweet it out. And you can take a look at it yourself and have fun.
Let's get up again for Henri.